You're not back. You're just a big fat phony. And a liar. That pretty much makes you Hitler. You're not uploading videos to YouTube? You selfish piece of shit. How can you look in the mirror? How can you look in the mirror? Look at you. Look at you. Ew! You're disgusting.
Hello? Like a pig, you fat phony.
Very self-conscious about my weight.
Which game do I review? Well, it's a pretty good one, but maybe some other time. Put that over here. Geez, I love this. It's a little old though. Yeah, ew, it's ooh. Yeah, let's do this one.
So I recently finished A Link Between Worlds, and I have to say, I wasn't very impressed. And I had super high expectations for this game, but who can blame me? This game was getting a huge amount of praise all over the place, and Pro Jared even said it was the best Zelda game made in the past 15 years. I mean, who could blame me for getting so excited? All I was thinking was, could there really be a game better than Skyward Sword, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask? I mean, that's impossible. Or is it? No, it's impossible, believe me. Needless to say, I was a little disappointed when I got my copy. I mean, sure, the game is pretty and the dungeons are cool, but it was missing something. Something important. And considering how much critical praise it's getting all over the place, I figured I'd be the first person to say something bad about it. For those of you who don't know, A Link Between Worlds is another entry into the Legend of Zelda series. But instead of going with the 3D approach we're all used to, they decided to go with an old-school top-down look of its predecessor, A Link to the Past. A Link to the Past is a Legend of Zelda game that was released on the SNES in 1991. It was a huge step forward for the Zelda series, and it's a lot of people's favorite Zelda game. A Link Between Worlds is supposed to be sort of a sequel set thousands of years in the future with an all-new Link, but the same overworld. And I mean, it's practically identical. Now, whether you take this as a love letter or a cop-out is up to you, but the only difference between the two worlds is that one's 3D and one isn't. One difference between this game and A Link to the Past, however, is the game's antagonist. This time, Link is faced with the challenge of defeating Yuga, a wizard who is trapping the 7 sages and Zelda in paintings and planning to use them to release Ganon from the Sacred Realm. For more information on what all of this means, here's a link between videos. Now, speaking of Yuga, you may have noticed how similar it's apparently a he, looks to Ganondorf. I mean, it would make sense that they could both just be from the same part of Hyrule, but seriously, Nintendo? This is the best you could do? A gay Ganondorf clone. Anyway, to defeat Lady Yugaga, Link must obtain the Master Sword and save the 7 sages, and that's pretty much the story. This game features a total of about 12 dungeons, and it took me only 12 hours to complete with a mild amount of fiddling around and exploring, which brings me to my first real complaint. This Zelda game has to be the shortest one I've ever played, which is really a shame considering this game has some of the best dungeons. All of the dungeons feel very unique in design and concept, and they're all just a joy to navigate. It's really a shame this game is so short. Or is it? For about maybe the first quarter of the game, this game appears to have it all. A good story, characters, cutscenes, and then as soon as you acquire the Master Sword, poof, it all disappears. Gone. No more cutscenes, no more memorable characters, nothing. You have a map of the location of the 7 sages, and that's it. You're completely off the leash, until about the very end of the game. Now some people are going to like this. I hate it though. What? I mean, after the leaps they took in the storytelling of Skyward Sword, it just feels like a big step backwards. I loved Skyward Sword. It had so many memorable characters. I mean, Beetle, Zelda, Groose, freaking Groose. So many feels. So many. Skyward Sword gave me a reason to care. Majora's Mask gave me a reason to care. Wind Waker gave me a reason to care. Heck, even Phantom Hourglass gave me more of a reason to care than this game. In all those games, you had a ton of memorable things. In A Link Between Worlds, other than the Merchant Ravio, you pretty much have next to none. Now, I feel like the top-down view can take partial blame for this. It severely limits how the characters are displayed. You can hardly see the faces of most of the characters, and this really hurts the game's presentation, in my opinion. It makes the entire game feel less inviting. Nintendo, I want more of this, and less of this. But let's move on. In A Link Between Worlds, instead of acquiring items slowly over time by finding them in dungeons, you can now just rent all of them at the start instead. Oh, that's what Zelda was missing.
You have to have almost all the items from the very start of the game, so there's no mystery to what items you'll get. Genius! Oh look, a new dungeon. I wonder what item that I already have will be needed for this one. Fire Temple Ice Rod, Ice Temple Fire Rod, Sand Temple Sand Rod. Oh no, I died! Better just rent every single item again because there's nothing else to spend my rupees on. It's so much fun! It's so much fun, Nintendo! I mean, god friggity damn it, Nintendo. If you're going to add a new mechanic that brings the quality of the rest of the game down, at least make it worth it. And yes, this mechanic is what I believe to be responsible for the lack of a story in the latter portions of the game. The fact that you have all the items from the start of the game means that you can do the dungeons in any order, completely killing the opportunity for any cutscenes or story progression. And this would be fine if it actually added something to the gameplay in return, but it doesn't. This type of item system would have worked very well if each dungeon actually used a variety of items, but they don't. Each dungeon usually requires only one item with an optional secondary item that makes it easier or lets you get to secret treasures. This was also a big disappointment for me considering that this was pretty much the hook of the game. They spent a lot of their time advertising it, and it seems like they didn't utilize it at all.
Now, all this said, I still think A Link Between Worlds is a good game. What the game does right, it does very well. The dungeons are all new and creative, and Link's ability to turn into a painting adds a whole new dimension to the game. And I'm also a huge fan of the art design. There's also some Street Pass mumbo-jumbo thrown in there, but nobody uses Street Pass. I'm white! No. But I really just can't understand all the praise this game is getting.
It's getting rave reviews by many people. It's gotten 3DS Game of the Year on some websites, and some people are even saying it's the best Zelda game in the past 15 years. Pro Jared. I'm so disappointed. And though this game is enjoyable, I can really see no reasons to justify all the praise. There's just really nothing I could take away from A Link Between Worlds. There's almost no memorable characters, no wow moments, it's just a very okay Zelda game. Now I get that Nintendo is going for an old school design with this game, but this doesn't mean the game has to be of a lesser quality. Technology hasn't come this far for developers to start taking steps backwards.
I still think A Link Between Worlds is a good game by today's standards, but just don't go into it expecting it to blow your mind or anything. Of course, this is all largely opinion-based, so if you have a different one, leave it in the comment section. I mean, I won't read it, but for a less pessimistic view on the game, go ahead and check out my buddy's review over at Punch Start Games. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Then you say...
Video, you fat phony.
Yeah, he said say it louder.
Make a video, you fat phony.
You gotta be convinced, Cole. You really want me to make a video, Cole.
Make a video! Ah! Ah!
Too much.
Is this camera on? Is this in the booth? Is this camera on?
Okay, yeah. You want? No. F this game. F this game. Get my hopes up for nothing? F you. If you don't feel it, don't do it.
Or you want me to say fat phony?
You can say whatever you want.
You're saying
No. No swears.
yeah.
What?
I can't do this.
What do you want to say?
Go to the next side. I'm just gonna make a video, you fat phony. Make a video, you fat phony.